Welcome here, welcome back. It's weird I can say that. Um, I'm really only saying that to one person, but that's fine. Um, Today I wanted to talk about dystopia. The world is categorically going to high shit right now, and it's really fucking depressing. But I wanted to reflect on some fictional dystopia, specifically dystopian books, and what I believe that we can learn from them. Um, I think if you ask most people, they'll probably tell you that I'm into fantasy as a reading genre. Fantasy or romance, those tend to be the two things people lean towards. And I am very much into contemporary romance, it is one of my favourites. Fantasy, not so much, I just really like Lord of the Rings, and I talk about it enough to make up basically an entire obsession of the genre. I'm a bit snobby when it comes to fantasy because I am one of those people who believes Lord of the Rings to be peak fantasy, and thus I don't see the reason to branch out. A bit small-minded of me, but I'm content where I am. However, dystopian is a genre that I have been a massive fan of for years. I have been reading dystopian books ever since I was a child, and the concept has always fascinated me. I read The Hunger Games when I was about 10 years old, and they became one of my favourite book series for a very long period of time. After that, I read Maze Runner and developed my first fictional crush on Newt, who then I later found out was gay, and that broke my heart. And then I read the Divergent series and adored it, and I continued basically on the path that I think every preteen girl who likes to read goes on, down dystopian worlds. I never got into Twilight though. That was the one thing my mum steered me well away from, and I guess I'm thankful. Now I look at it and go, ooh, the idea of paranormal romances have always freaked me out. I don't know, interspecies just isn't my thing. I'm sorry, the lighting's really harsh. I'm gonna. That did nothing. 2 secs. Okay, that's good. Um, I'm honestly grateful for my dystopian phase, and I've still not grown out of it. Today, I want to talk about three of my favourite dystopian books and what I believe we can learn from them, and what society should have taught us through this presumption of reading. Just YA dystopian is very often overlooked, and I kind of mentioned it earlier. Um, Talking about that phase that every preteen girl goes through who reads. And there is a lot of trash out there, but also I say that half-heartedly because you like what you like, and I was a lover of Divergent. I adored it. I would tell people that I was part of the Amity faction, and I would rant and rave to you for as long as I could because I adored the mindset. I was addicted to Maze Runner, and I would tell you why Scorched Trials was my favourite book in the series. And to be fair, I liked the books. I like the films more than I like the books. That is one of the things that um and I remember forcing my dad to watch it with me again and again and again because they were my favourites. And I very much was obsessed with the genre, and I still am. Um, Scythe, a dystopian series that's on this list, is still probably makes it into my top three books. Well, actually, Thunderhead does, which is the second in the series. But the series itself is, I think, my second favourite series overall because Lord of the Rings is the trilogy. But it is beautiful and I adore it, and we can learn so much from it. Because that's the terrifying thing, I think, when we sit back and look at the world now. Teenage girls who read these kinds of stories, in my belief, probably have a better understanding of empathy and compassion than many people in Parliament do. And I'm using that as a very broad, stereotypical view of the genre and talking about the people who enjoy them. Because, of course, these books are for anyone and should be read by everyone. They teach all three of the books I'm going to cover today in British schools, some British schools, who cover the dystopian topic. And honestly, it breaks my heart a little bit to hear my stepdad, who is an English teacher, just diminish and talk negatively about these stories because they are so powerful and important, and he writes them off because in his brain they are teenage girl fodder, which is stupid. The idea that we focus so heavily on something that is so minuscule in the story when these books have so much to teach us about society and how we stereotype people and morality and empathy and compassion. These stories are amazing. I'm using half of this as an excuse to rant about my favorite books, and half is trying a plead to get you to understand what I need and what actions we need to take. While I live in the UK, I am more than aware of the hatred that is brewing in America and in our country too. We've had the legislation passed on transgender rights, and while that doesn't legally change anything, the principles and the ideologies are there, and the ideologies are in systems of power. The ignorance is everywhere, and if there's one thing dystopia argues against and tries to make you liberated from, it's ignorance. They we are so heavily against ignorance. So strongly, we teach people to be your own, to be yourself, not to fear others. Yet we look at a world today where all we do is fear others. These books are warnings, and I'm going to try and encapsulate the reasons why and why I believe these stories are so important, even if they are branded as teenage girl fodder, for example, in the literary world. Okay, I started off very simply. Hunger Games. This is one of the most impactful books that has been written of the 20th century. It is massively influential and always has been since its publication. This book has harnessed four very successful film franchise afterwards, and continues. Suzanne Collins continues to write to this day, expanding on her world and her story, with the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and Sunrise that released this year, both of which I have not read. Unfortunately, my friend has, and she loved both of them. I have watched Ballad, but I have not. But I have not read it. I do need to, because I am obsessed with this world. The story that I think The Hunger Games preaches most to teach us is a very simple let them eat cake ideology. A simple idea of the rich isolating and infringing upon the poor, but letting them have these simple luxuries. It preaches about the dangers that we have to indifference and harm of others, and our humanity. I don't want to leak too much into what I want to talk about for Scythe, because I'm going to lean into the empathy and morality side of things. This, I want to focus more on our blindness and our willingness to accept the things that are pushed upon us. Because the Hunger Games needed a revolution and needed change. And the Hunger Games disturbingly reflects the change that happened and now the change that is being diminished on a much smaller scale. I want to say on a much smaller scale, but the phrasing sounds wrong, because it should be on a smaller scale because it is fiction, but it should not be on a smaller scale because it should not be happening. I shouldn't be able to sit here and compare a dystopian novel where children are forced into an arena to murder each other for the live stream's entertainment to modern day political warfare. For those of you who don't know, but I assume most people do, The Hunger Games is a dystopian story that follows Katniss Everdeen. She is a 16-year-old girl, and her sister is selected for something called the Hunger Games, which is a yearly fight to the death tournament, battle royale style kind of, where a bunch of children, one boy and one girl from each district, which is basically the separation of the poor into categories used to fuel the wealthy and elaborate lifestyle of the rich, are forced to fight to the death on live television for entertainment. That is the basic plot world building. If you have not read this book or watched the films, I implore you to, because they are amazing. They are so good, and they are so knowledgeable, and they are an amazing story, even if you don't want to view it from a political sense. However, The Hunger Games has a romance in it. It has a love triangle-ish. Many people call it a love triangle. I personally, when I read the book as a 10-year-old, never understood it was a love triangle. I thought Katniss and Gale were just friends. Then they kissed, and I went, "What the? Where did this come from?" Meh. It doesn't matter. I was never understanding, but the whole point of the love triangle is to make Katniss choose between two sides of herself. And in this situation, we as society, I feel like a Katniss, which is a weird ass thing to do considering how much people shit on this love triangle. But I am going to bring your bigoted ass into this and force you to be in a love triangle while we sit down and have a proper grown up conversation. Katniss has to choose between two sides of herself, her anger and her hate, and her desire for revenge in Gale, and her love and compassion, and willing to move on and heal in Peter. In the end, she chooses Peter, and she chooses a life of happiness, a life where she can let go. Now, this is what we should all choose later. And I don't mean this now, because our fight isn't over. Our fight has just begun. In in the Hunger Games, the sorry excuse the Capitol use for their torture and degradation and murder of children is a revolution that happened 74 years earlier, or approximately. It's the 74th game in the first book, so about maybe 75, 76 years earlier. I'm sorry, I am not got a timeline. I'm a fan, but not a complete knowledgeist. Knowledgeist is not a word either. Not a scholar. Um, and this was a act of the people to unite for social justice. And this is where I believe in my real world example, we were. Were-ish moving forward. Think about all the massive changes that have happened in the 2000s, the last 20 years. We have progressed massively. Hell, even the last 80 years, we have made steps forward into social equality, women's rights, gay rights, trans rights, rights of ethnic minorities. We have moved, religious minorities. We have moved to a more accepting society. We have done that. We have acts like protected characteristics. We now in Britain to preach about the British values. I'm sorry, I can't talk for America. We now preach about the British values and things that make us us and why we should respect and tolerate people for that. That is something that is taught in schools. We are taught tolerance and we are taught to love each other. That is very basic and very simple. We are taught kindness. And that is good because hate is a learnt thing. Hate is not inherited. And we are trying to push the next generation towards love. However, just like the revolution in the Hunger Games, this seems to have failed. And now, as almost punishment, the rich, the conservative, those who believe in their traditional values and ideals, are making us and putting us in a state that was worse than before. We are being ruled back, pushed back, because you think Black Lives Matter? Oh, you think all white people should die? See? We are being the intense hatred, the unbelievable intense power that people are pushing on us. You think gay children should be happy? Why are you trying to turn our kids gay? You think trans kids could be safe? Leave them alone. Sexual harassment, child abuse. We are being thrown at these stupid and simply outrageous comments to our simple beings to want to love, all guised under the idea of protecting the children and safety and religious or racial purity, which is just absolute fucking bullshit. I hate that one. I fucking hate that one. And the idea that the world is becoming too woke. We are progressing too far and we're becoming too sensitive. It's funny that we feel like we should put a barrier on equality. yeah, we can be equal, but not too much. Yeah, women can have the right to vote, but if you're in America, you have to have the same name as your birth certificate. So if you get married, sorry, you can't vote. Or yeah, we think that we should. It's terrible that kids should live in war-torn countries, but you can't come here because we don't want you here because you're stealing jobs. You're stealing jobs from people, even though you are a child. You are 5 years old now. Don't worry, go back to the bombs. Or we believe in equality for trans kids. We believe in gay people rights, but you can't get married. And that's in quite a significant part of the world. And in fact, most people don't even have the respect to even pretend. Actually, you know what? I think I prefer that. I'd rather you be outwardly bigoted apart instead of some first world countries that sit here and talk about gay rights and slowly take them away offhandedly. You can't get married in Italy and have children. Gay lesbians can't have kids legally. If one of them dies, well, your child's off to a foster carer because you're not legally allowed to have that child. They're not yours. You are taking away rights, and we are taking away rights, and we are, like the people in the Hunger Games, letting this happen because I don't actually know. We're letting this happen. We are letting things go to shit, and we are watching them go to shit. And we have no good excuse. You can't sit here and wave away your rights. Even if it doesn't affect you, you can't sit here and wave away my rights. You can't sit here and wave away other people's rights. You can't sit here and just because it doesn't affect you, you can't just watch it go by. Because then no one's going to be there for you. If there's this very famous Holocaust poem called When They Came from the Jews. When They Came for the Jews. And it's by this priest, and I'm really sorry his name I cannot remember. Let me pull it up now because I think it's very important to comment on. The poem is by Martin Niemöller. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, it's German. And it goes like this. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then, they came from the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came from the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came from me, and there was no one left to speak for me. And that is the position I think we find ourselves in. We refuse to speak up for other people. We refuse to help other people. And just like what happened back then in Germany and what happened in our fictional story, we are letting it happen. But the rich, they don't care. They don't realize they need us. And I know that sounds stupid, and I shouldn't be arguing for poor people's place in society by they need us. But I'm saying it is incredibly ironic to watch people sit there and fuck other people over without realizing what they're doing. We talk about a very held attitude by Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. And that is the situation we find ourselves in. I saw this today on a YouTube video by somebody else talking about Katy Perry going to space, and it had the line on the thumbnail, let them eat cake. And I feel like that's where we stand. We stand in a let them eat cake society. You have issues? Let you eat cake. You can't afford a house? Don't worry, I can. Why can't you just do this? You can't afford that house, it's fine. Afford a different house. Afford a nicer house even. It's the ignorance that we find ourselves in, and the place that we put ourselves in. Because we put ourselves in a Hunger Games-like category. We put ourselves where we went better. It's not going well, and we're sitting by and letting it happen. Because do you really want to be responsible on the front lines when your child is slaughtered? Are you going to sit there in silence then? Because according to this book, you will. It'll be so far gone. You'll sit there and you'll cry. And you'll watch your blood die on live television. Because they're the rich. That's what they can do. And that's where we're letting ourselves go. Okay. On a similarly depressing topic, My next dystopian story I want to talk about is The Giver. I adore this book, and I don't think it's as nowhere near as well known as The Hunger Games, or Scythe, I think, which is my third book on this list. Um, it is by Loris Lowry, and it is about a dystopian world, a dystopian community, more accurately, where they all live in this place. It's a community, and everything's in black and white, and everything is government controlled. This story, I want to talk about the dangers of conformity and the eeriness that you get reading this book. Because this book is creepy. It is a terrifying read, and I don't say that lightly. This book is scary, and I think that's for the good. The fact that this book makes my spine want to crawl out of my body is a good thing. And it should make yours want to. If you've never read this book, I completely recommend it. It's short, it's only 200 pages. I think it's actually less than that. Wait, sorry. Let me just check. Oh no, never mind. It's 228 pages. That is quite a short read, and I would recommend anybody who's not touched it to read it. It is beautiful. If you struggle to read, listen to an audiobook. If you struggle to do that, please get somebody else to read it to you. And again, it's gorgeous, it is beautiful, it's haunting and terrifying. And that's what makes it a good dystopian. The book follows this young boy as he goes throughout his life. Well, less so throughout his life. Throughout this new year of his life, this new chapter. Jonas, his name is, and he lives in the community. He lives a very normal and average life in the community, as everybody does. He has a mother and a father who were chosen for personalities as compatibility by the state. He has a younger sister who his parents applied for, and he himself is an older child, as the state says he will be. The world is black and white. He rides his bicycle to school every day. He gets good grades. He says the correct manner of speech, and he says everything that the state tells him to. He does everything the state tells him to. When he starts having dreams of an inappropriate and undesirable nature, he takes his medication, like the state tells him to, like his mother tells him to. He sits down and he shares his every thought and he shares his every dreams, because that's what people want. We sit there and we listen to each other in pure and utter silence. Jonas doesn't know the sound of birds or of joy. Well, he thinks he does, but he doesn't. He knows the sound of regulations, the sound of rules. He's never felt fear. He's never felt much pain. He's never felt human. Jonas has never been a human child. And that's a subject that is touched upon. Nobody in the community is human. They terrifyingly lack the ability to be human. And the state demands that they aren't human for their own good. They shouldn't share things, and they should be appropriate. Nobody has emotions because they don't need emotions. They need to function and be the same. Nobody has a birthday. Everybody's birthday is on the same day at a ceremony. And this ceremony, once a year, you get something different. Then the state chooses your job. Then the state will choose your partner. Then the state will pick for you 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl, appropriate years apart. So then you are stable, financial, and happy. Only you're not happy. You're terrified. Well, you're not. I would be terrified. I would be scared. But they're not. Because this is the community, and the community takes care of them. And it's that kind of psychological manipulation that is pushed in and in and in again to you in the books. And Lois Lowry does this amazing technique of show not tell. You're never told for a long period of time that the world is black and white. You kind of feel stupid when you look at it from the cover's perspective now. black boy, red apple. There's the difference. All the houses, they're boring silhouettes, slightly different, but basically the same. And you just get this feeling of unease and confusion. Fiona, this girl that Jonas has a crush on, well, doesn't have a crush on because that's not allowed within the community, but he does. She has bright red hair, but she doesn't know that. Jonas knows that apples are red. He knows what snow is, but nobody else knows what that is. Because you see, Jonas is given the career of my name and the brain has gone blank. He is given the career of, it's the giver and he is the receiver. Sorry. Jonas is given the career of the receiver. He will receive memories from the past world, the scary world, the outside world, and he will be an advisor to the council, to the elders. And he is exempt from the community rules. And this is when he begins to see, and when he begins to understand. But these people don't understand. Jonas watches as his father euthanizes a baby, a perfectly healthy baby, just because it might not have been right for the community and it wasn't okay for them. So the child died. He watched his loving dad stick a needle into a head and he died. This is tragic and breaks Jonas's heart. He can't understand, and his father doesn't understand. It's this intense, unbelievable, awful kind of grotesque misunderstanding because he doesn't know and he doesn't know why. Jonas then runs from his community and he runs away. And what I think is interesting is people chose to go to the community. I was talking about this book, and the person I was talking to asked me, why did people decide this? And why did they stay? And I didn't have an answer at the time, because there's no answer given to you in the book. This is actually a series. I've just not read past the first book because I can't find the second one for the life of me, which is really upsetting. I do want to read more. However, I think it's due to the idea of conformity, the idea of comfort in sameness, and the idea of comfort in being the same and everything being simple. Because wouldn't you like if the world was simple? Wouldn't you prefer if the world was easy and everything was okay? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting basic. But we need to think about the dangers of basic. I was listening to a Frank Turner song, 1983, and one of the lyrics in it is, "Be scared of simple answers." That shit's for fascists and maybe teenagers. As a teenager myself, bit painful, but also I understand that sometimes my problems do have easy answers. But I think they're right. Easy answers, they're for fascists. Easy answers aren't correct. Easy answers shouldn't be a thing. Because nothing is simple if you're talking about some kind of wider world perspective. The simple world is never the world we live in. We don't live in a fix all one problem save society solution, because that's not the world we live in. The giver warns us against this because conformity seems nice. The world seems nice and easy. Black and white, no harsh weather. You hate harsh weather. You don't want it to rain all the time. We can fix that. I don't want to feel pain. We can fix that. I don't want to feel left out. That's fine. We can fix that. Struggling to find a partner? We'll give one to you. Struggling to have kids? Don't worry. Don't want to be pregnant? That's fine. Here, have a child. They're your perfect child. Here, take this drug. It will make you feel better. And you'll be happy and you will conform. And they do. And they fall in line. And we're left with this horrifying world that nobody's sure if you want to live in. Because you're right, the story is correct. All the answers to everybody's problems, apart from Jonas's, is simple. Easy answers. But easy answers at the cost of your identity. And easy answers cause us and lose us our humanity. Okay. The final book I want to talk about is Scythe by Neil Shusterman or Schusterman. I hear lots of people pronounce his last name differently. I'm really sorry. This is my second favorite book series to ever exist. I have tagged it. I never tag books. This is a beautiful story. It is a intriguing and thought-provoking story about morality, what makes us human, and how we react to the world around us. If you have not read this, again, all three books on this list, I implore you to do. It's longer than The Giver. If you struggle at reading, I recommend The Giver. But if you can, and if you're physically abled, read Scythe, or find somebody who's obsessed with Scythe to tell you everything about it, because it's basically the same thing. I adore this series. I made a massive Word document explaining my love and breakdown of this series, and I am tempted, and I do want to do videos on every single character and explore their philosophies and the key themes of this book. And I will. One day I will. But right now, I want to tell you about humanity and what Scythe teaches us about desensitization and how dangerous desensitization is. All these books have a common theme, and I'm trying hard not to repeat myself. But if I can hammer this home to you in a 30-ish minute video, I would be grateful. I say 30 minutes, I'm assuming I'm going to finish talking about this in 30 minutes. I'm sorry if this is longer and you're looking at the length of the time being like, what the fuck is she on about? Scythe tells the story of a utopian world where a powerful, all-loving, benevolent AI rules everything, apart from death. Now, I appreciate that it's not one of those simple dystopian stories where the AI is evil and the Thunderhead controls everything, and it's out to kill humanity. The Thunderhead is benevolent, and it is loving, and that adds an interesting dynamic to the story itself. However, it explores the world of Scythedom, powerful beings, well, people who have been given this elevated status of power and their life as they kill. They have to kill people to keep down humanity's population because we have one planet and the Thunderhead's advancements to different places has failed. So now we live somewhere else. We will not live somewhere else. We live in a world governed by Scythedom, as they are the most important beings. And it talks about desensitization and what makes us human. Because scythes are the only human people to exist in this world. One of the things that truly struck out to me when I read this book was Kitra Shinoba, who is arguably the main protagonist of the series, going to apologize to a girl that she murdered when she was a child. In this world, people can be retrieved as long as you've got enough of their brain intact. So as long as they've not been burnt or what do you call it when somebody dies of acid? Acidified? Corroded? I don't know. As long as they've not been acid burnt, you can generally retrieve their bodies because you need their brain, and that's about it. Maybe a bit of skin. And Kitra, as a child, was jealous of this girl in her ballet recital, so she pushed her in front of a car, and she ended her life at 7 years old. And the line that I remember was her talking, reflecting on how the other kids made fun of this girl, because you know how funny it is when somebody goes deadish. Kitra Shinoba murdered a child. At 7 years old, she herself killed somebody and then laughed at her about it because it was funny. Because she got run over by a car. A child. And nobody batted an eye at this. because she was seen as a petty child squabble. She killed a kid. She murdered somebody. And the story tells it the way that Kitra sees it. She doesn't see it as a crime of her life. She sees it as something she feels guilty about because the girl got teased. Not because she killed her, because the girl got teased. And she apologizes for it later. And all the girl has to say after this interaction is, "Oh crap, my noodles went cold." She doesn't care. She gives no shits. And that's haunting. It's disturbing. Because when you think about today's society, if I told you of a story of a 7-year-old girl who killed another one over a ballet recital, you would be horrified that children murder each other. But they don't care. Neither of them are affected by this incident any more than a couple weeks and a small piece of regret. Kitra feels guilty for killing her, but moreover the fact that she got teased and that she never admitted to it. Not the intense weight, debilitating guilt that you would have if you murdered someone. Scythe talks about how death, so flippantly, talks about the idea of people going deadish. Talk about our desensitization to humanity. There's this child, and I will call him a child, 17-year-old Tiger, who kills himself right at the beginning of the book, chapter 2. He throws himself off a building, and he calls it splatting because he likes the adrenaline rush. He repeatedly murders himself for the sport. Repeatedly talks about how his parents are mad at him because he's costing them money, and they won't even come to see him, despite the fact that he died, because he doesn't care. And they don't care because he's done it so many times. There's this blatant horror of the dehumanization and desensitization we have in society. And I'm bringing this back to us now. Because we are desensitized to a lot of things, and that's scary. To the point where we don't care. Or the point that we forget about things when they don't until they innately impact us. For example, how many of you remember that Roe v. Wade is technically overturned in America if you don't live there? Or even if you do live there? Do you know that in quite a large amount of states, women can't legally and safely have an abortion? Do you know that technically children are dying all across the world, or that England technically sent a bunch of immigrants back to a war terrorist-like country? Do you remember that? Do you know that, for example, the expression that I brought earlier about people in Italy? Do you know that all of the horrors are happening in America right now? Do you care? Do you care that there is a rising rightist government happening in Eastern Europe? Western Europe, not Eastern Europe, sorry. I don't actually know about the political states in Eastern Europe. In Western Europe, they don't affect you, so you just get on with your normal life. And you become so desensitized to it. You look at the news and you see that a child's died, and then you move on with your day. But when your child's dead, I'm sorry, I keep bringing it back to the harsh-ass reality, but I'm trying to get the point across that we as people don't see ourselves as people. We don't see other people as people. And we're just a start to this draining cycle of eventual deaths that we don't care about. Because someone else will fix it, and it's someone else's problem. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, this has been a very depressing video. I did not mean it to be as sad as it is. I just wanted to sit here and try to highlight all of the issues that we have and what I think we can and should learn from dystopian and fantasy. I love dystopian as a genre. And honestly, I can't tell whether or not I yapped too much about the genre or too much about why I think the world is dead, or I focused a bit too much on depressing ass subjects of child murder, and I'm really sorry that I did. But halfway through the segment, I was like, holy shit, I need to shut up. I apologize. I am still really weird doing these, and this is kind of awkward. Um, yay. Um, Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have an amazing day.